Have you ever tried to learn something entirely on your own? Maybe you decided you were finally going to master a new language?
Or pick up a complex coding skill for work.
Right, exactly. Or even just learn how to play an instrument using online tutorials. You always start out incredibly motivated.
Always. The
Like,
first day is great.
yeah, the honeymoon phase. I mean, I remember during the lockdown a few years ago, I decided I was going to become fluent in French.
I think we all did something like that.
Right. I bought 4 different grammar books, I color-coded everything, and honestly, by Wednesday of that first week, I just hit a massive wall.
Wednesday. Yeah, that sounds about right.
You feel completely stuck, you aren't making any visible progress, and you start wondering, is my brain just broken?
Right, like, am I just bad at this?
Exactly. And that feeling of being stuck is exactly why we're diving into today's material. We are looking at a really insightful educational transcript.
And was originally put together for self-guided English learners. Right.
Yes, exactly. But our mission today is actually much broader than just language acquisition. We are going to extract the core psychological framework from this material.
Because the mechanics apply to anything.
Exactly. To uncover exactly how you, and I mean anyone listening right now, no matter what you are trying to learn, can master the art of studying alone. We're going to figure out how to avoid burnout and make rapid progress without a teacher looking over your shoulder.
Okay, let's unpack this. Where do we even begin when we hit that initial wall of frustration?
What's fascinating here is that the problem isn't the fact that you are learning alone, and it's almost certainly not a lack of motivation.
Or intelligence?
Right, or intelligence. The real issue is the absence of a structured system. When we try to learn independently, we often mistake busy work for actual structural progress.
The classic illusion of productivity.
Exactly.
The notes we're looking at bring up a highly relatable anecdote about the trap of buying beautiful stationery. It's literally exactly what I did with my French books.
The crisp new notebooks. Yes. You buy a crisp new notebook. You decorate the pages with beautiful blue titles. You use perfectly color-coordinated pink highlights.
Green vocabulary box.
Clean vocabulary boxes, right. It looks like you are doing serious academic work, but really you're spending more time decorating the pages than actually absorbing the information inside them.
Well, it is a very comfortable trap because it gives you a dopamine hit without actually challenging your brain.
Let's clarify that for a second. When you say a dopamine hit, what is actually happening in our brains when we are, coloring in those vocabulary boxes?
Think of dopamine as the brain's internal reward system. It's a little gold star it gives you for accomplishing something.
Okay.
And the brain is naturally geared to conserve energy. Learning a new, complex skill takes a massive amount of cognitive energy. It literally burns calories.
So the brain is looking for the easy way out.
Exactly. It looks for a shortcut. It realizes that setting up a study schedule or color coding a notebook feels like progress.
So it releases the gold star.
Right. You get the reward of feeling productive without having to endure the uncomfortable friction of actual learning. And without a system to force you into that friction, your study time becomes entirely random.
I noticed the author uses a really visceral analogy for this kind of random learning. They compare it to going to the supermarket when you're completely starving.
It is the perfect comparison. Imagine wandering down the aisles on an empty stomach.
It's dangerous.
Very dangerous. You grab a bag of chips here, a chocolate bar there, maybe a random carton of juice.
And in the moment, it feels productive because your cart is filling up.
Right. But when you get home and unpack those bags on your kitchen counter, you realize you don't actually have the cohesive ingredients to make a real nutritious meal.
And that is exactly what we do with educational content online. We watch a quick 5-minute grammar video, listen to half a podcast.
Read a random article.
Yeah, but none of it connects.
And the psychological fallout of that approach is incredibly predictable. Because you are learning randomly, you don't see any tangible progress, your brain isn't forming solid connections.
Because it's just snacks, it's not a meal.
Exactly. And because you don't see progress, life easily gets in the way. You skip a day of studying because a work meeting ran late.
Then you skip a second day because you're tired.
And suddenly, 3 days have passed with zero practice. And that is when the guilt cycle begins.
Oh man, that little voice in your head starts whispering that you are falling behind, that you are wasting your potential.
Precisely. And to overcompensate for that heavy guilt, people usually resort to what the transcript calls a panic study session.
I have absolutely been guilty of the panic study session.
Most of us have.
You sit down at 10 o'clock at night, highly caffeinated, and you open 10 different tabs on your browser.
You try to cram a whole week's worth of vocabulary.
Yeah, a dense lecture, a practice quiz. You force it all into a massive 2-hour marathon, and you always end up feeling completely exhausted, overwhelmed, and strangely unsatisfied.
Well, you feel unsatisfied because the learning was chaotic. If we look at the plant analogy from the material, it makes perfect sense.
I love this analogy.
It's great. Imagine trying to keep a houseplant alive using that panic method. You pour a massive overflowing bucket of water onto the plant on a Monday.
Right.
Then you completely ignore and starve the plant for 4 days. Then, feeling incredibly guilty on Friday, you drown it with another massive bucket of water.
The plant gets completely shocked by the flood.
And damaged by the drought.
Yeah.
It doesn't grow smoothly. The human brain acts the exact same way with information. It strongly prefers small, regular contact with new concepts.
Not huge, dramatic cram sessions followed by days of complete silence.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The alternative to that chaotic drowning method is actually quite simple. The author suggests building a 3-part learning machine.
The plan, the input, and the output.
Right, so if that's the framework, how do we structure the plan so we don't end up just, coloring in notebooks again?
The plan only needs to do one fundamental thing. It must answer the simple question, what exactly will I do today? And you have to answer that before you even sit down at your desk.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, answering that question in advance entirely eliminates decision fatigue.
Exactly. Every single choice you make in a day drains a little bit of your cognitive battery.
So if you sit down to learn without a plan,
You spend the first 15 minutes just scrolling through videos, clicking different articles, trying to decide what to focus on. By the time you actually start studying, your brain is already tired.
wow, yeah. To bypass that fatigue, the material outlines a 2-level strategy. You set a weekly goal and then a daily micro goal that supports it.
Right, breaking it down.
So let's say your weekly goal is, by Sunday, I will record a 2-minute audio summarizing my week in the language I'm learning.
That's the destination.
Exactly, the destination. Then the daily micro goal is just the tiny manageable step to get there. Like every day, I will speak out loud for exactly 1 minute.
And by the time Sunday rolls around, that 2-minute recording feels effortless because you've been quietly building up the momentum all week.
It creates a seamless progression.
It does. And once that plan is locked in, you move to part 2 of the machine, input.
Which is simply the information going into your brain, the reading, the listening, the watching.
Right. But there is a crucial caveat here. The input must be a comfortable challenge.
I'm assuming that means it shouldn't be too easy, but it also can't be too hard. The transcript mentions aiming for 70 to 80% comprehension.
That's the sweet spot.
What happens if someone decides to just dive into the deep end? Say they want to learn Spanish. So they put on a complex movie with incredibly fast, slang-heavy dialogue.
If you choose material that is too complex, your brain will simply protect itself from the cognitive overload by shutting down.
Just completely chepping out.
You will physically hear the words, but you will mentally drift off after about 2 minutes. You want that 70 to 80% sweet spot.
Because you understand enough of the context to follow the general idea.
But there are just enough unknown elements to gently push your brain to adapt and grow.
And to actively engage with that input, the notes highly recommend the pause and repeat method, which is often called shadowing.
Shadowing is incredibly effective because it forces active participation.
How does that actually look in practice? Because it's not just passively listening to a podcast while doing the dishes, right?
Not at all. Let's actually demonstrate it. I'll say a sentence. You physically hit pause on your audio player,
Yeah.
and then you repeat that exact sentence out loud.
Okay.
So the audio says, the weather is surprisingly warm today.
I'd pause it and then say out loud, the weather is surprisingly warm today.
You see the difference. You aren't just letting the sound wash over you.
I'm training my ear to hear the specific rhythm.
And forcing your mouth to produce the physical sound simultaneously. It keeps your attention anchored.
But there's a massive external factor the author points out regarding this input phase. Your physical environment.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Oh, it's so true.
It is a universal rule of human behavior. If your study notebook is buried in a desk drawer or your textbook is shoved under your bed in a box, you simply will not use it.
The friction of having to dig it out is enough to stop you.
Yes. You have to design your environment to trigger your habits automatically.
Oh.
Keep your materials visible right on your desk. Leave the browser tab open. Make the right choice. The absolute easiest choice to make.
Okay, so we have the plan to stop decision fatigue. We have the input perfectly leveled for a comfortable challenge. Now we hit part 3 of the machine. output.
Getting the knowledge out of your head.
And this seems to be the part solo learners dread the most because they assume they need a conversation partner or an expensive tutor to practice with.
They assume output requires an audience, which brings a lot of pressure and anxiety.
Yeah, stage fright.
But the beauty of solo learning is that you can practice output in a totally safe, low-stakes environment. You can literally talk to yourself while making breakfast.
Really? Just standing in the kitchen.
You stand in the kitchen and say out loud, I am making coffee. Next, I will check my email.
It sounds a little silly, but you are actively forcing your brain to retrieve vocabulary and construct the grammar in real time.
Exactly. And the ultimate tool the author suggests for this output phase is the 60-second recording.
It is brilliant in its simplicity.
It really is.
You just open the voice memo app on your phone, hit record, and talk for exactly 60 seconds about anything. Your day, the weather, your dog.
And then you listen back to it. But there's a very strict rule attached to this.
You only listen back once.
That rule is vital. You aren't listening to judge yourself.
Or criticize your accent or cringe at your mistakes.
Exactly. You are listening objectively as a curious observer to find just one tiny thing to improve for tomorrow.
Like maybe you realize you used the wrong verb tense. Or you stumbled on a specific pronunciation.
You identify it, make a mental note, and move on.
It creates a continuous self-generated feedback loop. You are collecting your own data.
Yes.
But even with a perfect three-part machine of plan, input, and output, eventually every single solo learner hits that wall where they feel like nothing is happening anymore. The dreaded plateau.
The plateau is universally frustrating. But we really need to redefine what it actually is.
Okay.
A plateau does not mean you are getting worse. And it certainly does not mean your learning system is broken.
Let's pause on that phrase for a second. The notes mention cognitive adaptation happening during a plateau. For anyone who isn't a neuroscientist, what is literally happening in our heads when we feel stuck?
Think of learning a new skill, like hacking a brand new path through a dense forest.
Okay.
The first few times you do it, it is exhausting. You are clearing brush and stepping over logs. That is the active learning phase.
Right.
When you hit a plateau, your brain is essentially taking a break from clearing new paths. And instead, it is quietly paving the path you just made with asphalt.
Wow.
It is organizing the massive amounts of information you fed it, strengthening those new neural pathways, and filing things away in your long-term memory behind the scenes.
So the progress is just invisible, temporarily.
Exactly.
The author uses a great gym analogy for this. You do not do bicep curls on a Tuesday and wake up with massive muscles on Wednesday.
The physical adaptation happens invisibly during rest. Cognitive adaptation is exactly the same.
As the old saying goes, Rome was not built in a day. It requires patience to let that invisible compounding effect take place.
And to prove this, the source material shares two incredibly memorable real-world stories.
First, there's Sarah. Sarah was studying a language entirely alone, and she told her teacher she felt like she was literally talking to a brick wall.
But instead of rage quitting during her plateau, she committed to tracking tiny habits.
We're talking absolute micro habits. 5 minutes of listening, 1 minute of speaking, and learning exactly 3 new words a day.
It felt painfully slow to her, but over weeks of just consistently showing up, her comprehension quietly skyrocketed.
Because she didn't interrupt the paving process.
She allowed her brain the time it needed to organize the data.
And then there's Carlos. Carlos was completely terrified of speaking to actual humans.
So his output strategy, he literally talked to his coffee cup every single morning. He treated his mug like a real conversation partner.
It's a fantastic example of lowering the barrier to entry, but I have to stop you there. Talking to a coffee cup.
Yes.
I read that part of the notes and just thought, doesn't that feel completely ridiculous at first? If I stand in my kitchen having a deeply emotional conversation with ceramicware, I am going to feel unhinged.
How did he push past the sheer awkwardness of that?
It does feel ridiculous at first, but that is actually the secret.
What do you mean?
When you talk to a coffee cup, you completely remove the element of human judgment. The coffee cup isn't going to roll its eyes if you use the wrong verb tense. It isn't going to interrupt you.
Oh, I see.
By embracing the absurdity of it, Carlos removed the anxiety that was blocking his cognitive recall.
He was able to practice the physical mechanics of speaking without the emotional weight of a social interaction. Exactly. And within 3 months of doing this, he transitioned to having real, confident conversations with actual people. The coffee cup practice built the muscle safely.
That makes a lot of sense when you frame it around removing anxiety. But what do you do on the days when you are just exhausted from work and even talking to a coffee cup feels like an insurmountable task?
This is where the 5-minute rule becomes your ultimate safety net.
The 5-minute rule.
When your brain is heavily resisting the idea of studying, you don't try to force a 1-hour session. You make a deal with yourself.
Like a negotiation?
Yes. You say, I will sit down and do this for exactly 5 minutes. If I still want to quit after 5 minutes, I have full permission to stop.
Just to get the ball rolling.
Precisely. Because the absolute hardest part of studying alone is simply overcoming the initial friction of starting.
It's the transition from doing nothing to doing something.
Once you are 5 minutes into the task, that initial resistance usually vanishes, and you often find yourself naturally wanting to keep going.
The train script lays out a daily routine built entirely on these kinds of microactions, and what stands out is how utterly manageable it is.
It breaks the day into 3 tiny chunks.
Right. In the morning, you do 5 minutes of listening while you drink your coffee.
Nice and easy.
In the afternoon, you learn 1 to 5 new words and actively try to put them into a funny or bizarre sentence because humor makes things stick in your memory.
And in the evening, you do 1 minute of speaking out loud, followed by 1 minute of reflection.
I want to highlight that evening reflection because it is a vital piece of the psychological puzzle.
Just asking yourself, what did I learn today?
Taking that brief 60 seconds to consciously acknowledge what you accomplish triggers that positive emotional reward in the brain we talked about earlier,
You get a genuine hit of dopamine from your own progress.
which neurologically reinforces the habit. You are actively training your brain to associate learning with a feeling of pride and satisfaction.
Rather than associating it with the guilt and exhaustion of a panic study session.
It totally rewires your emotional relationship with studying. And the author leaves us with a great little solo learner's vocabulary, 3 action words to describe this agile mindset.
The first one is tweak.
Right. When a study method isn't working for you, you don't quit the whole endeavor, you just tweak it. You make a tiny adjustment.
Next is ditch.
If you are using a heavy, boring textbook that puts you to sleep every time you open it, ditch it. Throw it away. Don't fall for the sunk cost fallacy.
And finally, squeeze in.
You don't need a perfectly quiet, uninterrupted 2-hour block of time to learn. You just squeeze in 5 minutes while you are waiting for the bus, or while you are waiting for the pasta water to boil.
Those 3 words perfectly capture the flexibility you need. You have to be willing to constantly adapt to your own life.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now?
That is the ultimate question.
If we synthesize everything we've unpacked today, the absolute core truth is this. Whether you're trying to learn a new programming language, master a foreign language before a trip, or prep for a massive certification at work,
The secret weapon is never the 5-hour late-night marathon study session.
it is all about the system. Consistency always beats intensity.
Always.
It is the small daily micro actions, the 5 minutes of listening, the 1 minute of recording, the refusal to quit during a plateau when your brain is paving the roads. That is what builds the ultimate learning machine.
This raises an important question and something I want to leave you with today to really ponder.
Okay.
We talked earlier about the power of the 60-second voice recording, just doing it, listening back once, and moving on.
Right.
But imagine if you didn't delete those files.
Oh.
What if, instead, you saved every single 60-second recording in a dedicated folder on your phone for an entire year?
Wow.
You wouldn't just be practicing a skill, you would be creating an audio time-lapse of your own cognitive evolution.
That gives me chills just thinking about it.
Imagine the profound psychological impact of sitting down a year from now, press and play on day 1, and literally being able to hear the physical rewiring of your own brain over 365 days.
You would hear your hesitations slowly turn into confidence.
Your stumbling turn into flow. You would have undeniable recorded proof of your own potential.
That is an incredibly powerful image to end on. The undeniable proof of your own growth sitting right there in your pocket. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today.
It's been a great discussion.
We hope unpacking this framework has changed how you view your own learning potential and maybe removed some of that solo study guilt.
No more panic studying.
Exactly. Now, don't wait for tomorrow to start building your system. Go squeeze in your first 5-minute micro action right now. Get the ball rolling.